computer. And I will just share my screen, which is this one. Okay. Open up the chat box and open up the participants box in case anybody gets bumped out and needs to come back. Okay. It's here. And all right. So here we are. Welcome to another clip for class. I hope these have been useful, the recordings of these clips, so you can go back and look at them later. They are in your classroom, all in a group that says Zoom recordings, and they're on my YouTube channel, which is not advertised. They're just for you. They're not secret, but they're not trying to become a YouTube star on this. Okay, so we are in your classroom. We go to classwork, and just to show you quickly, this is where you will find the Zoom meeting recordings. They're all in there. The ones that I have put up so far. And so if you just hover over it, it should tell you the whole name. So compare and contrast, research paper, personal essays, and so on and so forth. Okay, so they're there, and I hope they are helpful. For everything related to the research paper, things are in this section week 4, as you know. Quickly, I will jump ahead also to say that in this section, and this is my Google Classroom, so it might look a tiny bit different than yours, but just so you know, additional readings and resources, I have started to add more things than that were there before. So you can check the date. Basically, July 3rd, I copied everything over from the last semester because I've been adding stuff for a long time. So yesterday, last night, I started adding some more stuff. So in here, if you're doing anything around mass incarceration, I have one chapter from Ijeoma Oluo's book, So You Want to Talk About Race, but specifically on school to prison pipelines. And then this is a whole PDF of the entire book by Angela Davis, recently published, titled Are Prisons Obsolete? And if you don't know who Angela Davis is, you should. She's an icon. And you can Google her, you can ask me. She is somebody who's worth reading. She has very strong views on many things, but she's an excellent scholar, among other things. Okay, so that here you will see that there's lots of information. And you can use these sources for your papers. If there's things in there that are interesting and useful and appropriate, you can use them. I love sort of collecting articles, so it's my pleasure to add things in. So take advantage of that. For the paper itself, you have to have 4 sources minimum. So your paper at the end of it needs to have at least 4 sources cited. You can have more. You can have 30, whatever you want, but you can't have less than 4, okay? And this again is not as much about the subject. The subject is important, but that's why I want you to pick something that you are interested in. It's more about how do you do a research paper, right? How do you structure it? How do you do the citations? All of that stuff. So you need to make sure that you follow the rules. And that is one of the big things when you get to college is teachers want to make sure that you have followed their instructions. They want to make sure that you're paying attention. They have spent their whole life becoming experts in whatever it is they're teaching, and they feel like they know what they're doing and that they want you to follow their guidelines. So part of all of this class is just to help you remember and instill the idea that when the instructor gives you instructions or rules about how to do an assignment, follow them closely. Because if you don't, then they will feel like you weren't really paying attention or you're not serious, okay? So 4 sources. And then just want to highlight here, week 4 research paper. Towards the bottom, there's a section called research paper handouts, which I would normally give to you in class, although I try and have a paperless class even in real time, in real classrooms. Here you have the basic information about your paper and key dates to remind you when things are due. There is a link to a title capitalization tool. So you can just type in your title, select MLA, and it will do the work for you. You can copy it over. Some pages about how to do MLA citations if you want more information about why it is like it is. If you don't, you can also go to the citation machine, just type in your source and it will formulate the citation in the proper format for you. In this class, we are using MLA in-text citations, which is, it just says MLA formatting, but we're doing MLA in text, okay? I'll fix that afterwards. Okay, and then there's a bunch of stuff to check, checklist, make sure you've covered everything. There's things from the English department. There's things that I have added. And then this one, MLA research paper template, will become your friend, I hope, because when you click on it, it will open up a document. Please don't edit this, please leave it as it is, that I think I've already shown you, but I will show you again. It shows you how your paper should look when you're done. And again, this is just a sample. It is not a full-length paper, so don't be alarmed that it's not very long. It's just to give you an idea of what you're working towards. So last name and the page number. The reason you want to put your last name and page number on every page, get into the habit of doing this. And I suggest that you do it as a header, because then it will update automatically for you and you don't have to worry about your page numbers accidentally ending up in the middle of a paragraph. It's because, for example, if I decided I'm old school, I want to print out everybody's papers and read them. Many teachers like to do that. They prefer it, and then they give you comments and they give you the hard copy back, right? So if I print out 10 papers and then my 5-year-old grandson comes and takes everything out of the printer and then he sets it on the chair and then he goes somewhere else, and then the cat jumps out of her box, lands on the papers, and they all go flying onto the floor, perhaps even into the hallway, and then I have to figure out whose paper is which. So if your name is on each page, it makes your teacher's life a lot easier to reassemble. That has happened. That is a real life scenario. So again, you're just making everything as easy as possible for your teacher. They will appreciate that, and it's a good habit to get into regardless. But that's why originally people need to put their name on each page, okay? Then you can have your name, professor's name, class number, and the date. So these are obviously not accurate for our class, but to give you an idea. You're going to have the full title of your research paper in Times New Roman 12-point font. Do not try and get fancy and have a bigger title because you think it's going to look cool. Just leave it the same size font as everything else. The reason that we use Times New Roman, that's sort of the standard for LaGuardia English department, but in publishing, it is also a standard because it is a font that travels well through cyberspace, okay? So it guarantees, or mostly guarantees, that whatever you send to your teacher will look the same on the other end. And you've worked hard to make it look perfect. You want to make sure it still looks like that when they get it, okay? So that's why we use Times New Roman, and 12-point is easy to read. Make sure you double space things. That's also important because teachers are old and have eyes that need to have as much help as they can get. okay? And again, that is an industry standard. If I submit something for publishing, I will always submit it double spaced because they always require that, okay? Indent your first paragraph and every subsequent paragraph with a 1/2 inch indent. That way, you do not have to have a space between your paragraphs. The indentation tells your reader quickly that there's a new idea coming, or you're building on the idea you just discussed, okay? So the indent does the same thing as adding a space. And just to keep things tighter, it's better to do the indent instead of adding space everywhere, okay? And then you will want to read this actual example because it is helpful. It says, as your paper develops, you will want to incorporate your research. Sometimes you will use direct quotes that duplicate the original source word for word. Your citation will then look like this, and it is the last name of the first author of the article, okay? So you're not gonna have footnotes. You're not gonna have the entire citation, the entire title of their article, any of that in your actual text. You're just gonna have this little citation, okay? And if you refer to this article several times, you use the same citation each time, okay? So that's what you do if you have a quote. Other times, you will put the ideas from your research into your own words, and that paraphrased material must also be cited in text. So in this case, I have theoretically taken the ideas of author Dworkin and paraphrase them into my own words, but I just still need to give that person credit that I didn't steal their ideas, that I am in fact building on their excellent research and putting it into my own words. So similarly, I put the last name of the first author, sorry. And in this case, it was on page 3 of the article, so I add the page number. You cite a website with an author the same way you would an article. So here, same thing. Instead of getting it from a database, and maybe I got it from a journal, whatever, I got it from the website. In this case, because we're online, a lot of you will get a lot of things from websites. So you will still do the same thing that you put the last name of the first author, okay? And after I finish this, I will show you how to find your articles, your peer-reviewed articles. Even if your information came from a website without an author, you must cite that source using the first word or couple of words of the title in parentheses. Last resort, if your website source doesn't have an author or a title, which is admittedly unlikely, you would then just use the website in parentheses, okay? Save the full web link for your works cited list, okay? So this little paragraph here will help guide you on the citations. At the end of your paper, you will list all of your sources in a works cited list. The works cited list begins on a new page and must be included in every research paper. And then your sources will be in alphabetical order, and it will look like this. So here, this is not the order that they showed up in the article, but they are rather in alphabetical order, okay? So as a reader, I can just go and look. I don't have to dig around to figure out where that article is referenced. I know it's going to be alphabetical order, and I can quickly jump to the source, and I figure out where you got it from, and I can look it up if I want to read it myself. Okay? Questions? No? Oh, okay, cool. So this lives in the Google Classroom. It will not go away. It is there for your use. Take advantage. So the next thing that I want to do for the rest of our time today is to quickly show you how you find sources. So I'm going to type this in here. peer-reviewed academic sources. Okay. You have to have at least 2 peer-reviewed academic sources. You can have many more. You can have 43 other sources, but you still need to have 2 peer-reviewed academic sources. You do not have to have them from the LaGuardia database, but I would suggest giving it a look because you do want to make sure that they're peer-reviewed, and it's guaranteed. You can, well, guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed, it depends on your subject, but it is 99.9% sure you'll find something in the LaGuardia database. And so you want to make sure that you've got the right type of thing. So peer-reviewed means that, for example, if Dr. Peter Piot, who is a public health expert who discovered Ebola, one of the people who discovered Ebola 1,000 years ago, decides he wants to go and write an article about COVID-19. Because he cares about his research being verified by others, so he's not just writing an opinion piece, but he's actually contributing to the body of research, he will submit his article to, for example, Journal of Public Health. Before they publish it, they will ask other experts, like maybe Anthony Fauci or Jose Esparza, or these are people you probably, maybe you don't know who they are, but anyway, other experts in the same field of virology and public health, epidemiology, will be asked to review that document and say, yes, I agree with this research, therefore I endorse sending it out into the world. They may review it and say, not so sure Peter has this part right. I'm going to send it back to him and say, there's a problem with this. Other research contradicts it. And until Peter gets it sorted out, then they won't publish it. That's what peer-reviewed means. So it's like a panel of experts that verify the work of other experts. And so the reason that you want to do that is you want to make sure that you're not just getting, you know, opinion pieces from BuzzFeed or, you know, somebody's idea that they put up on Medium, which there may be some brilliant, awesome things you'll find on Medium, and many professional writers actually use that, but it's not a vetted source. So you can't guarantee that that information is as accurate as the community of specialists believe it could be. Okay, so that's what peer-reviewed means. All right, good questions, keep them coming. Okay, so this is the splash page for LaGuardia.edu. Should be easy for you to remember because you are currently going to school at LaGuardia EDU online. If you go there, you will see up here on this red banner, My LaGuardia, Ask LaGuardia, Library, and Directory. If you click on Library, which I already did before, it will open a separate page that is just LaGuardia Library. Clever how they did that. So you still have access to the LaGuardia page, but you're taken directly to the library, okay? On this page, there are other things that you may find helpful to look at, so it's worth just spending a little bit of time and looking through things, particularly in this students area. They have things about research help. Yeah, they have sorts of different sorts of information, and here in Find is another place where you can look for research guides, for example. They can be very helpful, okay? And I know that they also have quite a few tutorials and videos, stuff like that. So if you're not really sure what you're doing, these can supplement. You can always ask me, but you can also just find a lot of stuff here. I'm gonna click on this one also, so you see what it looks like. That was the help from home. And here, again, there are more links about tutorials and handouts. And this site gives you the option to directly contact one of the LaGuardia librarians. So if you've looked for things and you still can't find a peer-reviewed article that you think is useful for your paper, you can send them an email and say, can you help me? I'm enrolled in English 101, and I am looking for a paper that will tell me about the history of the Spanish flu pandemic and relate it to the current COVID epidemic, for example. And they will write back and say, yes, we can help you. We think this might be a good source. And they will send you some links. They might actually send you the papers. They are very helpful. What you cannot do is send them a note and say, I'm taking English 101 and I'm writing a paper and I don't know what to write about. Can you help me? Then they're going to say, nope, can't help you. That's too vague. Do some more thinking. When you have a very specific query, come back to us. Okay? So if you're looking for a really specific thing and you just can't find it, they are there to help. If you want general advice, you're not really sure what you're doing, they're not going to want you to waste their time. But if you do know what it is, more specifically, they are happy to help you, and they are wonderful. Okay? They also have times when you can chat with them. They're great people. They love doing the research. They're there to help. So this is a great thing that you can take advantage of. Okay? All right. So back to the library page. Right here in the middle, up front and center, they know that most people are going to the library page because they need to do research. So it's right here. You can't miss it. Okay? The things you want to know for sure is that you can limit it to books, articles, audiovisual, and peer-reviewed. For the sake of our class, I recommend that you just search for articles because they will be shorter. If you had a whole semester and lots of time, you could definitely look for books, but you don't really have time to read a whole book right now. And it's also going to be a little bit limited because you can't go and pick up a physical book. You can only get what is available in ebooks online. And there may be a waiting list and so on and so forth. So I would say just stick with articles. Don't make your life harder than it has to be. Here, you can also check peer-reviewed so that you know you will get peer-reviewed sources included in your list. Okay? If you want help about citations, this is another place where it is linked. There are many, many, many places to find help on how to do the citations. Just know that it's there, okay? So I'm going to type in COVID-19, and I'm going to type in Spanish flu 1918 and just see what comes up, okay? I'm going to click on it. It's as easy as that. And here we are. I can add more things to my criteria if I decide I want to add something else at some point to make it more focused. I can change the year if I want it to only be from the last 6 months, or I want it to be from the last year. I can add lots of parameters in my search, but I've started with just a general one. And because this is so new, not surprisingly, there's not really a lot yet, but we have 158 results. It's quite a bit. So these are some of the articles. And as you'll see, this little icon is your friend. I think of it as a little smart person reading a book, because to me, it looks like a little person reading a book. So you want the purple person reading the book to be on the site that you decide to use. That is the thing that tells you it has been peer reviewed. My recommendation is that you do a search and you pick like 5 peer-reviewed articles that you think might be helpful for your paper, because you can always dump a couple if they're not helpful in the end. but it saves you having to come back and forth constantly trying to do research. If you want to do the research every day, you can do that too. But I would suggest going through, spending an hour or something, and then just trying to like find several articles that you think might be helpful. Okay, so this one, this is a viewpoint. It doesn't really talk about the Spanish flu in the title. I might skip over that. This is specifically about periodontal disease and oral manifestations of COVID-19. So I'm not sure if that's going to talk about the Spanish flu. These are all, this is about the origins, transmission, supply chain disruptions, tackling COVID, can the African continent play the long game? So none of these are actually, there we go. Spanish flu, let's see, when was, we don't know when this was written. 2015, so this was written before COVID hit. So it's not going to compare these two pandemics. So these might not be perfect, but I think this might actually be an interesting article about can an African continent play the long game. So if you go to another website, it will say peer reviewed. It may or may not have this exact icon, I don't know. But if it doesn't say peer reviewed in it somewhere, then be wary. You could still use the source, but it wouldn't count as a peer reviewed document. Okay. So I'm just going to look on this just for the sake of showing you one. I'm back here, tackling COVID, can the African continent play the long game? I think that might be an interesting article. And so here it is taking me to more information about the article. My computer is so slow, I'm so sorry. It tells you who the authors are, and it talks about basically what is covered in this article. And here, because I've clicked on it, I can see more information, and I see it does actually make reference to the Spanish flu. So this is probably going to be an interesting article if I'm writing about comparing the two pandemics. So I can see the whole text. I also have these little things over here on the side where I can save it or I can cite it. And that is very helpful because basically it will do the citation for you. You have this similar thing up here where it says citation with a little quotation mark. If you click on that, it will automatically generate a citation for you. You can just cut and paste it. You don't have to worry about it. You've got it there on your list. And again, if you decide you're not going to use the source, just get rid of it. But at least you have it, okay? Somebody mentioned that they use EasyBib as an extension in Google Chrome. And if you use that, that's fine. Totally fine with me. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with people using Grammarly. I think it's actually incredibly well designed. If it helps you learn how to fix the little errors, I'm okay with that. I encourage it actually because there's no reason to make life harder than it has to be. So as you can see, you have many options. You can cite it, you can email it to yourself, you can print it as a PDF, save it on your computer, you can get a link, many things that you can do. Okay. So then if I go link to source, it's probably going to ask me to log in to the LaGuardia Library, which is an extra step, but there's some information here, and you can look up your username and CUNY First ID here. Some of the students in the morning section actually clicked on this and did it and had great success. They were able to log in. If you have any problems, you have two options. One, you can ask me and I can look up your CUNY ID, your CUNY First ID number. I have access to those, so I can get that and send it to you if you don't already have it. You all are in the system, so you should be able to at least get into the LaGuardia database. I know this can be a challenge to get into any bureaucratic system, but in theory, you should at least be able to get into the LaGuardia database just with your CUNY ID, okay? I can look that number up for you. The other option is if you try and set this up and it's just becoming a headache, but you have found an article, you can send me a screenshot or the link and I can look it up for you and send it to you. Normally, I wouldn't probably do that, but because we have such a short amount of time and I know that it's hard to get all of this technology to work on the CUNY end of things, on the LaGuardia end of things, never as easy as it should be. I am happy to do that for you, okay? So I'm gonna log in to my account and hope that I typed my password in correctly. And another 40 years, we'll get there. Sure, let's save that. Okay. That's strange. No results were found. I don't know why that didn't work. Let me try again. Huh. So for some reason, this article doesn't seem to be showing up, which I do not know why. And that is not helpful for our demonstration. Also, it looks like it would be a really, try one more time. This works. Okay. So there's always several places where it says you can access the article. There we go. Click all of them. Again, these systems are gigantic and they are not always perfect. So just keep trying, be patient with them. Okay, so here's the article, Tackling COVID, can the African continent play the long game? This would be a really interesting thing to consider because if we're having this much trouble dealing with it in the United States, which in theory has everything any public health professional could possibly want, what is going to happen when a continent which traditionally doesn't have as many resources, how are they going to fare? So this could be a really interesting article to consult, okay? And now that I have it, I can print it, save it as a PDF, I could email it to myself. I have many options. And again, if I go back to the web, to the library database, I should be able to, oops, go away. I should be able to cite this here. And here you can see I have MLA selected and it generates my citation for me. Okay, so I can just cut and paste that onto my list of works cited. If I decide not to use this paper in my research and don't reference it, I can just delete it from my list. Okay, but it does the work for you. Okay. And again, here I can email the link, but I've already found it elsewhere, so I can just get it from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We can
Okay.
also use EasyBib, right? I've heard about that citation source. Can we use that, or should we
Yeah.
just stick to this one?
So EasyBib, there's both, I think, a Chrome extension, and there's also, they have their own website, right? So you can absolutely use that. My personal feeling on citations is that there's no point whatsoever in any student trying to memorize exactly how the citation works in MLA format versus AP or Chicago or Harvard or anything else, because invariably you're going to have to do this paper using MLA in text citation, and then next semester a teacher's going to give you APA. You're going to have to do a different format. So don't try and memorize these. Use all of the tools available to you to let something else do it for you. Just make sure that you have used the right format. That's all that really matters, is that you have followed the instructions and you've seen which format you need to use, and then use one of those online tools to do the formatting on your behalf and be done with it. Spend your brain cells on something that is more useful than memorizing format for citations. Okay. Any other questions about this? No? So my recommendation is when you're ready, just allocate some time, budget some time for yourself, and go in and just look around and see how it works, and type in a couple of sample searches until you figure out what it is that you really want to look for your paper, and then see what you can find. I am 99% sure that everybody's going to find something. If you have problems, again, you can ask the LaGuardia librarians. You can always ask me. I am happy to help as much as I can. And then there are the other places in your Google Classroom. So if we just go back to our classroom here before I go back to me. I have included, let's see, online academic research sources. I have gone ahead and let's just open this up. I've included some other databases where you will almost certainly find peer-reviewed articles. So JSTOR has a lot of stuff. These are some journals. There's some World Fact books. That could be an interesting source there. I would accept those because they're basically just, this is a CIA-run database that just gives you facts on like statistics of maternal health or population or basic facts that cannot really be disputed, okay? There's a climate change journal, guides by subject, how to find things from the United Nations. I've included World Health Organization documents because they are certainly a repository. Whatever you think about them, they are a repository for all of the health stuff related to COVID, and I know a lot of you are writing about that. This is a United Nations database for documents in general. OIE has court decisions that are written by the judges on a case. So this is a place, if you're looking for legal decisions, you can find them here. So there's lots of places where you can look, but you do want to make sure you have at least 2 that are peer reviewed, okay? And then as many as you want from anything else. And if you want to have all of your sources peer reviewed, that's okay too. But you have to have at least 2, and you have to have at least 4 total for your research paper. Okay? Questions, thoughts? No? All right, so I am going to go ahead and stop recording. Thank you very much.